You're watching Newsday TV. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ken Bufa. The Lindenhurst man accused of stabbing a CVS worker on Christmas Day has been charged with 3 counts of murder. Police say 43-year-old John Palacio is charged with fatally stabbing 23-year-old Edid Sansene Jr. of West Babylon in the chest while he was working behind the counter. Prosecutors say Palacio committed the murder while in the act of another crime. There's no word yet on what that crime is. And only in Newsday, Long Island University and a private North Shore school has been awarded a $2.3 million federal grant to boost civics education. LIU says the money will go towards educating the next generation on democracy and government as America approaches its 250th anniversary.
We know that our proficiency numbers in civics and American history in this country are about 19% proficiency. That's very challenging when you're talking about a constitutional republic or a democracy. We want our very young children to understand that they have a voice in the process.
The founder of the schoolhouse in East Northport says her team has created instructional videos on American history that will be shared with schools across the country. And a New Year's celebration happened today at the Long Island Children's Museum in Garden City. The event featured a countdown, interactive exhibits, craft stations, and New Year's decorations. It's been a tradition for more than 20 years.
It's really a special way on Long Island to celebrate the new year with all the music and fun of confetti and ball drops, but without having to go into the city.
A new exhibit is slated for 2026 at the museum called Saltwater Stories, all about the maritime culture of Long Island. All right, let's take a quick look at tomorrow's weather. We have a bit of a mixed bag. As you can see, we have rain and snow early in the morning, but that'll be blown away by the afternoon. Of course, we'll have that 7-day forecast for you later in the broadcast. There's new time limits coming for how long ICE agents can hold detainees at a federal courthouse in Central Islip. Newsday TV's Virginia Huey explains in a story you'll see only in Newsday.
We have been kind of ringing the alarm bells about the right thing for months now.
Immigrant advocates are calling it a small victory in their fight against the Trump administration's crackdown on immigration. After a Newsday investigation revealed more than 100 people this year were detained in unsanitary, unheated holding rooms for prolonged periods at the federal courthouse in Central Islip, a letter from the island's top prosecutor said ICE will no longer hold detainees more than 12 hours or overnight at the facility.
That is absolutely an admission of guilt. What we're seeing is the federal government admit that they were holding folks incorrectly here.
This statement from U.S. Attorney Joseph Nusella Jr. was in response to U.S. District Judge Gary R. Brown's December 18th order requiring the Department of Homeland Security to explain why a Jamaican native was subjected to, quote, abhorrent and likely unlawful treatment, including being held overnight at the courthouse in freezing, filthy conditions, unable to shower.
So what we're seeing is the peeling back of this injustice, and we're starting to see transparency flood into the facility that has been locked from residents for so long.
Felipe Hernandez Lazo was arrested on an immigration charge by ICE this year. He says he was detained twice in Central Islip overnight with little food and water, the lights always on, and no showers or hygiene products like soap. In court, Lazo described the holding cell as being around 6 by 6 feet for himself and 5 other men.
It's clear that they've been caught doing is violating people's right to due process, violating people's human rights to dignity, right, while they're being detained.
And now ICE is facing scrutiny from Senator Charles Schumer, who told Newsday he's calling for an investigation into ICE's treatment of detainees at the federal courthouse. In a statement, the Senate Democratic leader said, quote, we need a thorough investigation and any inadequacies or transgressions rectified ASAP. I am extremely disturbed by ICE's intransigence on legal cases and lack of transparency.
They're not above the law.
Immigrant advocates are hoping Senator Schumer will inspect the holding rooms himself.
We're going to continue to ring the alarm bell so our federal officials come and show what's really happening behind here.
For Newsday TV, I'm Virginia Huey.
Now, between a mortgage, rent, taxes, and insurance, many parents also have to tack on the cost of childcare to their budgets. Some are spending as much as $20,000 per child every year. In New York City, Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani made universal childcare a cornerstone of his campaign. Joining me to talk about this is Newsday's deputy politics editor David Cruz, Jennifer Marino-Rojas, executive director of the Child Care Council of Suffolk, and Dr. Florence Profet-Barbour, executive director of Harbor Child Care. Thank you all for being here with me. We appreciate your time. We'll start with you, David. We know Long Island is dealing with some child care issues, kind of as it is right now. Tell us about that.
Well, just through our reporting, through Candace Ferretti's reporting, we learned that Long Island is not immune to the issue of child care across the state. About 64% of the state is part of so-called child care deserts, and of course areas like Suffolk County are part of that percentage. And so the issue of child care has become essentially like a perennial problem, but I think now there's been this push now to really see what they can do to really fix the issue.
Absolutely. And Jennifer, we want you to kind of explain that for us. We've heard this term, kind of child care deserts. Explain a little bit more about what those are and where they are on Long Island.
Sure. So child care deserts are places where you have a lot of children, but not enough child care to meet the need. And on Long Island, the biggest area is out east in Suffolk County, but there are pockets scattered throughout the island. And the reason for the deserts really can range from there's just no real estate available, but the bigger issue is probably that there's not enough families who can afford the cost of child care. So it's not a good business idea to build something where you may not have people who can actually afford to take advantage of it.
Makes sense. So Florence, what is the concern for Long Island if this did come to fruition in New York City?
If universal child care comes to fruition in New York City, it brings about several challenges across Long Island. The first is, of course, since universal child care is in New York City, many parents who work in New York City will probably find an address in New York City, or those who work for child care on Long Island would then migrate to New York City because the wages are probably going to be a lot higher. There's also concerns of how will Long Island be able to then scaffold this universal child care. As Jennifer mentioned earlier, there's no opportunity for us to maybe grow in certain areas. The capacity is not there. And also affordability. Can parents afford, if Long Island doesn't make the transition to universal child care, are parents going to be able to then afford child care? Because it's already, as mentioned in the piece, 30 to 40% of a person's salary, right. and that's expensive.
So this could potentially be harmful for Long Island if we don't get on the same page as the city, if it does eventually.
100%. 100%.
Well, David, let's go back to you on this. What would need to happen before universal child care could even be possible? Let's start there.
Well, right. I think as mentioned, there is a moment of scaling up, and I think what you really need at this point is an infrastructure. You do need the real estate, you need the personnel, and you need to attract the right personnel for this kind of work. And right now, as our reporting showed, some childcare workers are not paid a substantial wage when it comes to this kind of profession. And so there needs to be a much higher wage at that point, but also there needs to be more certification programs to have these people become child care specialists. And so those are some of the factors that will have to be considered. And just bear in mind that this is not an overnight fix. I heard Zohran Mamdani, the mayor-elect in New York City, explain that it will likely take years for even New York City to see like a universal child care program. So this problem will take some time to fix.
Definitely in the very early initial stages of this idea. Florence, you run these child care centers, so tell us about this. Talk to us about the training process. Would it be difficult to find this many more reliable workers to fill the centers?
There will be some difficulties. I mean, just the basics is our workforce needs to have at least 30 hours of training over 2 years, I apologize. over 2 years. So 30 hours of training over 2 years. Also, some of our early childhood professionals do have a CDA. So that's 120 more extra hours that they put on top of what they do with the 30 hours. But what Dave said, which is also very critical to this conversation, is pay parity.
Yes.
What are we going to do to ensure that our early childhood educators are paid equally, if not more, than some others in the profession? Because the work we do is critical to people going back to work. It's an economic question, so there are so many variables across Long Island in terms of the workforce that needs to be addressed before before we can even entertain scaling this across Long Island. It's a multi-year investment.
We have some hurdles to overcome, that's
Absolutely.
for sure. So Jennifer, let's talk about how this could get implemented realistically. How long could this take?
It will definitely take quite a few years to get there, but a lot of work has been done. I was a member of the governor's task force on child care, and we issued a roadmap of how to get to universal care. There is a new plan for statewide universal care that would be done in stages. As Florence said, we need to build up the workforce. We need to figure out how the current workforce can get paid in a way where they're not actually accessing public benefits, which is something that happens now because of the way child care is structured. And the most important thing we need to do right now is fix and shore up the current child care assistance program. Right now, 30 counties, including Suffolk County, have closed their intake completely because there is not enough money. So before we can even start making those steps towards universal, we need to shore up the system we have now and then continue to build and grow on that.
Well, Jennifer, you mentioned Governor Hochul and the issue of paying for this. Let's get back to you, David. Just kind of explain for our viewers, where does Governor Hochul stand on this issue, and how would the state pay for something like this?
Well, that's the multi-billion-dollar question right now, right, in terms of where to find the money. And of course, everyone wants to see child care, universal child care, be a reality, but it's a matter of, like, where do you find the money? And of course, Zoran Mamdani has mentioned perhaps taxing corporations, and of course, Hochul has not really weighed in on whether or not that's even, or I think she has weighed in on whether or not they want to tax corporations, but she definitely does not want to tax the wealthiest at this point. That is sort of off the table right now. And of course, the session starts again in January next month. They have about 4 months to figure out where they can find any kind of money. And but even then, even if they find solutions here, it will, of course, take some time to sort of see this implemented. So the next 4 months will be very, very interesting.
For sure. Again, yeah, we're very much in the initial stages of this, but an important topic. Childcare is something that, you know, a lot of people rely on, maybe don't have family or in-laws, and it is expensive. So we will just have to wait and see what happens when and if this all plays out in New York City first. We, of course, will continue to follow the story and bring you any updates. My thank you to David Cruz, Jennifer Moreno-Rojas, and Dr. Florence Profet-Barbour for their time discussing this with us today. You can read more about the issue on our website, Newsday.com.
For decades, thousands of pieces of art have been created by the Long Island nonprofit Splashes of Hope. Newsday photojournalist Chris Ware introduces us to them.
My name is John Sturbins, and volunteering to me allows me to give back and to bring peacefulness and some fun and a little bit of joy to people when they need it most. I'm a volunteer for Splashes of Hope. They're an incredible organization that's dedicated to brightening the world through art. Their whole mission is to heal and uplift, and they transform spaces for positive change. We work with VA centers, with hospitals, children's centers, social service facilities, a whole host of facilities, and we transform those facilities from clinical to colorful. And we do that using murals and all different kinds of art. people go through all sorts of challenges, serious medical challenges, mental challenges, physical challenges, and we can make somebody smile. Man, that's our mission's accomplished. It's great. Volunteering to me means giving back and helping others in a way that I can make a difference, a positive difference in people's lives. And the work that we do through Splashes of Hope allows me to do that. It's my way of, I call it splashing it forward. I love being part of an organization that brings comfort and a little bit of brightness to people when they really need it. And it's amazing to me to see how art can transform and inspire people.
What makes this special is to see how everybody lights up.
That's the magic. When this stuff happens, it's awesome.
Let's take a closer look at your 7-day forecast. So tomorrow, we know we're going to deal with a mixed bag in the morning, and it's going to be cold and windy, temps in the low 30s, and we're not getting warmer anytime soon. Closest we see to 40 is Tuesday and Wednesday is bringing rain.
Long Island weather is brought to you by PTRC.
Now, for more on the stories you've seen here today, head over to Newsday.com. Click Get More below the Newsday TV video box. I'm Ken Buffa. More news coming up, and Happy New Year.
Get more of the stories you've seen on Newsday TV at Newsday.com. Plus breaking news, investigations, things to do, restaurants, and other Long Island news you can't get anywhere else at Newsday.com. Covering Long Island like no one else can.